deprived, and to have that massive national force there and not have people that remain given the opportunity ahead of someone else out of San Francisco or LA or someplace like that is wrong. We have now people that are destitute. We're becoming a retirement community because people out of California went up and bought homes in Sitka and Ketchikan to retire during the summer and go back to California in the winter. But the remaining kids ought to have a little time or little opportunity above those that are not anywhere near the area. His amendment makes sense. You say it's covered, but that's up to the secretary. He may not have anybody from Alaska be employed, any young person given the opportunity. That's what he's really trying to do. And so, you know, we can say, well, it's covered already, but it's the discretion of the secretary. He can bring everybody out of San Francisco, which possibly could happen on a 767 jet. And I'm just saying, think about this a moment. If it's already covered, but can we add a little more to those who have been deprived because of action of this committee? We did it. We've killed an industry that's renewable by action of those that don't understand the cost economically to those communities. It's just a little bit more attitude to make it a little better so the secretary doesn't have that discretion.
Would the gentleman yield to me?
Gladly.
Wouldn't this then over-regulate, because we always talk about regulations? This would then put another regulation in place, and we're always talking about regulations and mandates and funding and not letting the department determine the classification of economic disadvantage?
Well, what bothers me the most, the agencies themselves are the ones that are regulating. They're the ones. We don't pass regulations. The agencies do. This gives a total discretion to the secretary. And I'm saying, okay, do what you want to do, but at least give an opportunity to those young people that have no opportunity now with the forest in their backyard. They have a job, being employed, to be thinning, whatever they want to do. And, you know, it doesn't do any harm to the bill. You might tell me why this would harm the bill? Yeah, I want to know. Why would it harm the bill?
Would the gentleman yield?
Yeah, gladly yield.
If I could ask of the ranking member, is the purpose to draw specific attention to this group, this particular class of individuals?
The gentleman would yield.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I mean that was the reason.
Okay.
Those counties receiving secure.
But are you intending to cover people that economically, physically, or educationally are not disadvantaged?
That'd be a discretion of the secretary, but the preference here would be those counties and those children that live in the counties that are impacted by federal policy.
Would the gentleman consider language that said something along these lines? Those disadvantaged, economically, physically, or educationally disadvantaged individuals whose legal residence is, in other words, including, saying, including economically, physically, or educationally disadvantaged individuals whose legal residence is a county. In other words, including them, specifically drawing attention to it, but still requiring that they be economically, physically, or educationally disadvantaged.
I'm not opposed to where you're trying to go, and maybe we could ask the chairman to postpone this and see if we could work something out. But I think what you're saying is frankly a bit redundant, because what you're doing is making a description and applying that description to those counties. I'm simply saying that those counties ought to be, you know, whomever is within those counties, and not confined to just those that meet the other definition. If I understand what the gentleman is asking.
If the gentleman would yield, the problem I have with that is that, as the ranking is Mr. Rahal points out, that would include individuals that are not disadvantaged. If you allowed a language that said, including those that are disadvantaged who live within those areas, I think it draws particular attention to the group that you want to draw particular attention to, but it still requires that they be disadvantaged, which addresses the issue that Mr. Baca has raised.
I'm willing to work with the gentleman if he wants to do that. If the chairman would.
It sounds like we may have something here and may need a little more time to resolve it. Why don't we temporarily set this aside?
I'd like to be recognized, and I'd like to
okay.
hear from Mr. Grijalva.
Before doing that, I'll recognize the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Grijalva.